Let's talk about AI detection opportunities in your high school humanities classes and maybe even elsewhere.
This episode of the Christian Principles Podcast is brought to you by the Herzog Foundation. And as always, the thoughts and opinions expressed within this episode are those of your hosts and not necessarily of the Herzog Foundation. Welcome to the Christian Principles Podcast. I'm Matt George.
And I'm Mark Zacco. We're going to start off the top today with a letter from a friend, someone to which we actually sent a shout out to a while back. This shout out would have gone out to Mr. Kevin Suter. I have this. I looked it up. It was a while back, man. But Mr. Kevin Suter, he was our 60th or so recipient of a Dunkin' gift card. Hopefully it didn't get lost in the mail, Mr. Suter there. But in a recent research effort, I reacquainted myself with Mr. Suter, asked him to support me in something, and I got to read this email. Got to read this email from him. It said, IAC school leaders, which is the Indiana Association of Christian Schools, by the way. Took a few minutes this morning to explore the topics covered in the Christian Principles podcast and was struck by how practical this resource could be for each of you who serves as an administrator in an IAC school. Hosts Matt, George, and Mark Zacco declare their stated purpose of the podcast to provide immediately practical suggestions and spark further conversations about the issues facing Christian school leaders. From what I've seen, it does exactly that. I'm not aware of another podcast that addresses the day-to-day realities of Christian school administration any better.
Oh, dear.
If you ever felt that few people will truly understand the challenges you face each day, I encourage you to give it a listen. With more than 200 episodes covering a wide range of topics, you're likely to find a practical biblical counsel for many issues you're dealing with right now. Simply choose a topic that matches your current challenge and enjoy learning from the fellow Christian school leaders. Matt, I sent an email to Mr. Suter as fast as I could. I was amazed. I was thankful. He's the executive director of the Indiana Association of Christian Schools. He also, of course, works there at Colonial Christian School of Indianapolis. What a blessing, right? What an
blessing.
absolute blessing. Thank you so much, Mr. Suter. And to all of you IAX members, starting tonight with Mr. Jeremy Luchain. Luciene. I don't know. But Jeremy, you're getting bumped to the top of the list, buddy. Bada boom, bada boom. You're getting a Dunkin' gift card, and we will pray for you in just, not just a bit. We're going to have about
Not
30
a
minutes
moment.
before I pray for you. Yeah. You're going to be jumped up to the top of the list there at Bible Baptist School in Highland, Indiana. I'm going to jump you to the top of the list because your executive director, Mr. Suter, well, he reached out to us.
He
and
did.
We're thankful about that. So I guess before we keep going into our AI detection, which was something called on us to review by a good friend, another listener of the show, let's go ahead and hear from the Herzog Foundation and from the GradeLink Student Information Systems.
This episode of the Christian Principles Podcast is brought to you by the Herzog Foundation. As Christian educators, we know that liberty without truth is fragile, and truth starts with God. That's why the Herzog Foundation has launched the Faith and Freedom 250 campaign, an initiative that equips schools and families to connect the biblical roots of American freedom to the next generation. Having started on July 4th, 2025, and following through until July 3rd, 2026, Herzog is releasing short videos each Friday, highlighting voices from across the country, educators, leaders, parents, and everyday Americans, reflecting on key moments in our nation's history and the importance of commemorating 250 years of liberty. We all understand how faith has always been central to our country's founding and why it still matters today. It's an incredible way to integrate history, civics, and biblical worldview into your school's curriculum, especially as we approach America's 250th birthday in 2026. Visit herzogfoundation.com to view their free resources and get started today. And make sure to tell them that the fellas here at the Christian Principles Podcast sent you.
Want to keep parents in the loop without manually sending emails? GradeLink's automated alerts notify parents about missing assignments, low grades, and more, so teachers don't have to. It's automatic, and it just works. Learn more at cpp.gradelink.com.
Mark, before we get into AI detection, I got to say, Happy Independence Day.
Happy Independence
250th
Day.
anniversary. Now, I know everybody's going to be celebrating on Saturday, but today Today is the day to celebrate.
Today's the day to celebrate.
July the 2nd.
Well, why is July the 2nd the day to celebrate, Matt?
Come on. What, you call yourself an American? It's like
I think
that.
I
it's
know
like
you
that-
told me this before. It
Yeah.
has something to do with the signing of the Declaration versus when it was announced, right? Something like that?
It's like that Nate Bargatze skit
Oh,
on
yeah.
SNL. Get out of the boat. You know what? You asked me why should we celebrate on the 2nd? Get out.
But what of the plight? But sir, why would we spell it? No one will know.
No one
No one will know.
no.
We'll never know.
Hey, John Adams said we should celebrate on the 2nd. That's good enough for me.
Good enough for you.
Semantics.
No, but give us the reason. Give us the reason. Why the
It was
2nd?
officially drafted. It was officially voted on the 2nd. Like that
Okay.
moment.
There we go.
That moment of we are now officially independent from England.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is that the more important thing to remember, or was the official sending out of the document?
Okay.
Meh.
What is
Potato,
nice
tomato.
though? Potato patata. What is nice though is we're gonna have a couple of episodes around this time. Of course, the Thursday is going to hit before July 4th. The Monday is going to drop the Monday following July 4th, and we can recall the time and look forward to the time that we have to celebrate 250th birthday of back-to-back World War champs, United States of America. I love that shirt. Every time I see it, it's a great shirt, and maybe even we'll go far in the World Cup this year. Who knows? But
Oh dear, you
do
probably
need
just
to-
jinxed it.
I probably did. But Germany and the Netherlands and Japan have all lost. So, I mean, if it's as wide open as it's ever going to get, apparently.
Especially since the U.S. will have already played before we post this episode, so they could
Yes.
have already lost.
Yeah, we'll figure that out. But, Matt, we're talking tonight about AI detection. And this came
Yes.
to us via a solid listener, a consistent listener. Lynn, if you're listening to this, hopefully you are. This is for you. This is at you. We're
Mhm.
having a conversation about this. And, man, I think about AI detection as a humanities instructor now, and just as a teacher in general, and as one who's going to maybe instruct people and who's taken instruction on this and who's offered thoughts on this, who uses AI day by day, who is a digital native, but now has seen so much AI. I can look at, not perfectly, of course.
Sure.
I can look at a picture and I could say, that's a pretty AI. We're comfortable seeing the graphics, and you and I know, okay, an AI most likely made that graphic as well as papers, to be honest. There's even without the checker, we know literacy has dropped off in our country. So to have students that are writing this well,
we've got a pretty good AI DAR.
Yeah, we do AI DAR. I like that. Copyright, baby. All right. So we're talking about that tonight. I gave it some thoughts. What were you going to interrupt me and say?
No, that was it. It's weird because we're in that time historically where this new technology it's not new. It's not new anymore. But to many, we just have been so, I don't want to say, head under a rock, but there are those schools that just don't use technology. They're all the old paper and pencil, and there's nothing wrong with that. But we're now to the point where it's so prevalent that if we're not paying attention to it, we're going to get into a heap of trouble. So now I believe we're in that stage of comfort level where maybe we're ultra sensitive, where the AI are ping maybe more frequently than it should, or we've gotten to the point. And I know Lynn brought this up too, where we're getting assignments turned in that sound absolutely nothing like the child. And yet when we run our different AI detectors, we're coming up with nothing that it's 100% from a human, all this kind of stuff. So it's a struggle. And I think we have some pretty good suggestions when it comes to in your faculty development, bringing this up, the understanding of AI detection. Like, we need to have a go-to, we need to have solutions, it needs to be a part of the process. And I think hand in hand in this, and I don't think we're going to deal with this in this episode, but we've talked about it probably here and there throughout, but even coming about it on the other side where teaching AI responsibility.
Yeah,
So
sure.
actually teaching it rather than just trying to detect it.
Absolutely. We told you we're going to focus on AI detection in the high school. Please know, much like a cell phone conversation, just because we're approaching this from the high school doesn't mean it's not applicable elsewhere.
Right.
And what we're going to talk about tonight, we would say, please take this and run with it anywhere you want to, and go throughout your school with it. We're going to suggest definitely making sure that your teachers are aware as part of what we're going to say. But we're going to start. Well, we're going to have 4 points to make. AI detection. We're thinking high school humanities, but of course we know AI does math for you to click on a click photo right now and different things. So we are speaking mostly speaking to our teachers in a development setting about AI detection in their classes. So first one, and it may seem a bit counterintuitive, but do not rely on AI checkers. Now I'm
No.
gonna run with this, and Matt's gonna take over after I've run with it for a while. But at a very simple level, we need to understand that our students they're stupid and creative at the same time. All it takes
Yeah.
in a serious AI setting is for the student to say something along the lines of, to the AI,
Mm-hmm.
write this in such a way that AI is less likely to
Pick it up.
score it as AI. There are certain burstiness is actually one of the words that is used as concerns AI checkers. Like there's certain consistent argument styles. There's certain consistent ways of wording. There's certain things that these checkers look for. Now, there are a bunch of articles out there. You can find an influencer or a blogger who's looked at, I got one pulled up here. I tested 30 plus AI detectors. Here are my top 7 picks for 2026. And go figure, the first several are not free.
Mm-hmm.
And so I work at the university level. I've had access to Turnitin and other of these models, and we're not saying they don't have value. We are saying the value that you would want to place on them, which would be take this off of my plate, grab this document, plug it in, tell me if it's AI or not. That is not a safe thing for our teachers to be doing. Not only are they most likely not aware of the background of that AI checker, not only are they perhaps not cognizant of how to read the report, because, for example, Turnitin recently spoke about how between 0 and 19% may not even be something they're registering anymore, because in certain of the disciplines that Turnitin is used for in the educational setting, you would expect to see a high AI score because of references, because of quotations, because so there is a percentage. When I grade 600, capstone level projects in the master's courses, I expect to see some level of a solid percent. Excuse me, I expect to see some level which would look like AI did it. At the very least, looks like plagiarism,
Mm-hmm.
because you are offering quality citations and quotations from the sources you are using to make your argument. So again, does every teacher understand that? And really, few of our schools are actually paying for an AI checker. So while Winston AI may be the most reliable for education and SEO, who's going to pay $12 a month just for that? And
Nope.
even then, how close is think about your high school English teacher. How many serious essays are they grading per month? Like, this is the end of a project, and this is the end of the steps of the project. How many of those are they grading to make $12 a month useful? And I'm just pulling one and offering up to you for review. And would it not be perhaps just as useful to use a tool that you can access for free to give some understanding if it's a 0 or if it's 100%? But again, even there, I'm going to say don't rely on those scores either, because those scores may not be the most helpful either. So again, just AI checkers, be aware of them. Don't perhaps just place them completely off your desk, but do not rely on them to make a definitive statement about a student paper. You may find yourself in a very defensive and bad situation later
Yeah.
on because you used a checker that you can't vouch for how it works, and you're
Right.
your teacher who is not the most tech savvy who used it and just again say, oh, 100% plagiarism, dump, student's done, make a big deal about it when they may not know. Be careful. What do
Yeah.
you want to throw in there, Matt?
Well, I mean, there are simple prompts to give to AI. Going back to our kids aren't stupid. There are simple prompts to say, avoid being detected by, if they find out
Sure.
what checker you're using or just any checker, and granted, it may not be perfect, but it's going to up the game to make it much more difficult for you. So yeah, the AI detectors, while they're plentiful, and there are some that can integrate, right? If you use Google with Google Docs, you can there are attachments, but again, free version's only going to go so far. But I was going to say, you know, I was trying to think. I think this was 4 years, it may be 4 years ago now, when looking at AI and when it was starting to really become easy to get to. And the prompt I gave it was, I want you to write a book report of Huckleberry Finn as I believe I said eighth grader with a C average, and gave all the parameters of what the report was supposed to be based on
Mm-hmm.
what our English teacher was. I gave it to her, and I was like, how would this compare, to any of our kids? And she's like, I wouldn't question this for 1 second. And that was 3 or 4 years ago.
Mm.
So things are only improving. Like,
Yeah.
it is going to get harder and harder and harder to see what is and what is not um, AI. So this is going to lead me down the road of other ways that we can be sure that the work that's being turned in is in fact the students' work and not AI's.
Yeah.
That's the road I'm going to go down.
And that checker may not do that for you. It may be a part of that strategy, but Matt, you standing up to do professional development in front of your teachers and come the fall, I don't see you going to turn it in, dropping a lot of money on turn it in for each one of those teachers and saying, this is the way I want you to check for AI and here's the strategy, here's the policy. Like that's not gonna happen for you. It's probably not gonna happen for many of our schools. And to your point, by the way, Reddit, a Reddit
Mm-hmm.
posted 10 months ago. Does anybody know a good AI prompt to humanize and go undetected from an AI checker and plagiarism? I need for uni. So perhaps it's not from the US, but here's a response from ROJ671. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see this. But from what I know, AI checkers are trash and only detect patterns that are common in generic AI text. An easy way to avoid this is pass a few examples of text you have written and prompt it to match your writing style. Oh, again, our students aren't stupid. Uh, fine. There's another one. I just run my draft through Walter Wright's AI and it makes them read way more natural without triggering those checkers. So again, there's even tools built out right now that these students are aware of. So this leads well into my second point here. My second point is know the enemy. When I say know the enemy, I am speaking of, and we're speaking tonight of AI being much less a tool and much more a problem. So you do need to make sure your faculty understands the enemy. So have you introduced your faculty who may have never used AI before or who only ever have had that like repulsive view of AI or they're just not that tech savvy to begin with. So they may not. We were joking earlier that perhaps you and I recognize things that peers who have some more years on them than we are would not recognize as simply. Have we taken the time to actually go and develop with them an understanding of this is what you can expect a ChatGPT to spit out? You mentioned your 7th grade paper that you wrote, right, in AI. We want to make sure that our faculty does know what AI looks like. We could go back to that commonly held analogy offered in sermons year over year. How do bank tellers know the true dollar bill
Mm-hmm.
versus the fake dollar bill? they've looked at a billion $1 bills, so they know which one looks fake. I mean, I don't think there's I don't think that's gonna work every time, but I do think there's some value to that.
But I think that's the point. And there's two things, two avenues I think of on this topic. So one, do you know your students well enough? Like that is the knowing the dollar bill. You don't study the counterfeits, you study the real thing. So if I know my students well enough, I know what they're capable of. So when they turn in a sentence with vocabulary that they have never used in speaking or writing, then I mean, not necessarily jump right to, oh, it's just AI. It very well could be that they put it through Grammarly or something and just kept clicking on synonym, until it got really fancy. But it's not them, and that's what we're trying to communicate. Is like, I want it to be you. Like, this looks great. This would be wonderful if it's you. But I'm questioning if it genuinely is, because I know you well enough. So you know the real thing. But the other side that I was going to mention when it comes to know your enemy is when we sometimes just jump right into the conclusion of, well, it's ChatGPT. It's also Alexa. It's also Siri. It's also Copilot. It's also, there's all of these things out there that, we have to be rethinking. Am I really just going to, for my history assignment, say, answer these 5 questions? Because that is simply, and I mean, my kids, 5-year-old, when my wife and I are just in conversation and we don't know the answer to something, she's just, Alexa, what is this?
Yeah.
And boom, so
I don't want to, I got to reel you back in because you are going into
well, I'm saying we're jumping to the conclusion that it's just take my sentence and rewrite it, when it goes far beyond that. So if you understand from the beginning that when I'm making this, speaking of writing assignment, that is a possibility that's going to happen. So what can I do to this writing assignment to guarantee that I'm going to get their genuine response and not an AI created response? Just like I'm going to recognize it's them because I know them well enough. But am I giving them, am I just removing the opportunity? Maybe not at some point, but if it comes to building a thesis statement for a paper, that can be done right in the classroom, and you're giving them the opportunity. You're watching them build it. You removed the question, right?
And yeah, I think what you've effectively done is taken our second or third point here, which is know the enemy and then know the students. And you've done a little bit of conflating, but bringing them together. We're short on time anyway, so this is good for us, I suppose.
Well, I think they have to go hand in hand.
Yeah, sure. But you've also taken some strategies that maybe we'll talk about in the future and say, now these are some things you can do in the future. Here's a way you could build out an assignment, which I don't see that as a detection tool, trying to keep it focused on. I don't see that as a detection tool as much as this is a strategy for anti-AI usage. But if you didn't say that tonight, at some point, we wouldn't be setting the bar for another episode, which is always a good idea. And we wouldn't be calling out the obvious, which is the obvious. And knowing the enemy, if we don't have interactions with it. And I think that, when we were reading this point, that very basic point of, if I flashed in front of my faculty and staff's faces a bunch of graphics, and I said to them, find me the 5 of these 10 that was AI generated, and I just had the basic, and I mean, when I look at AI signs out there now of someone, the graphics that have the wording down the left hand side, and there's definitely a baseline that makes a nice inclusion with a rather, I'm not saying the brand doesn't look nice, but a brand that was nowhere near as creative as what my brother would have come up with in his graphic design work and whatnot. There's just, it's so readily apparent. Again, not 100% of the time, but I would be interested in hearing from my faculty and staff how many of them could, in a quiz during professional development, actually pick out, these are the 5 graphic design which were created by AI. How many of them could do the same thing with writing, or the same thing with just a general argument or system of thought. And if they can't do it for the graphic, which maybe because it's visual, maybe they could, but I want, when I say know the enemy, I really want to pin down how much do they know, and it's again, how much do they actually interact with the tools that their students are going to interact with, and I think a way of helping them detect AI is to tell them to go play in it. I
Sure.
really do, and that again, you went on
Sandbox.
into yeah, knowing the students as well. You went to a very clear one, which we have to bring up. Know the student's writing style. They're going to do this at the university level as well. I've taught freshman writing courses since 2016 now across a number of universities. They still do this no matter where they are. In a literature class, a freshman comp, another kind of comp, a journalism, whatever it is, they get a writing sample from the student as best as they can, because again, it's online. Get a writing sample from the student at the start of the course that they will weigh against the writing sample of students at the end of the course. So maybe it's something as easy as that. But again, just the recognition, especially for many of our listeners, they're not dealing with 30 kids in a classroom. They're dealing with something smaller than that. They're going to be more intimate with what their students' writing are. Well, you know what? It definitely takes time. It definitely takes time in the grading, takes time in the review, takes time to get to know those different writing styles. But you should. And really, of these, that's one of the best AI detectors we're going to have, is a competent, careful educator who cares,
Mm-hmm.
because they are going to know their students very well from the amount of writing, as you suggested, the amount of writing that they do in class in front of them. Very easy to juxtapose against what comes to them from outside.
Yeah, I guess when I'm thinking about AI detection, the other side of me, because again, I'm not we tend to gravitate towards the writing,
Mhm.
but it's how impossible is it to identify when they use AI to solve a math problem when it's a number. A number is a number. So knowing the students, yes, I'm going to have a pretty good idea of how they're going to do on the assignment. Granted, they could, actually study for once and maybe be different, but this is where I tend to go to a practical. I feel like AI is causing us in education not to run, scream, hide. But if it's not causing us to stop and consider and alter how
Yes.
we are doing things, then yeah, we are asking for a world of hurt. And so, when I'm thinking about assigning a math homework, like this is one of the things I'm planning on working with my faculty this coming year. When you assign math problems, great, it's good practice, but the conclusion of that assignment really has to be in the classroom the next day. Same thing when I'm making a history assignment. The conclusion of that assignment has to be in the classroom the next day, because I have to be able to generate a question or two that I can ask right there without their having to dig back into their books, without anything. They're just going to respond. That's going to communicate to me they genuinely did the work. Now, granted, they could be looking up AI, and that's where, again, we're not necessarily getting into whether they use it or they don't use it. We're just trying to determine, can we tell when they did in fact use it?
Mhm. Yeah.
And that's, if we're worried about them not using it, then those are the things you're going to have to do. You're going to have to come up with solutions of, let's just make it absolutely obvious there's no
Yeah.
possibility of using it here. And so
Yeah.
that's what it is. Because yeah,
Well, I
we
like what you're
expect our students to grow and to learn and mature throughout the year, so their writing style should change, but it's not going to change on one assignment. So,
Well, I like what you're saying there as well, which is a teacher needs to be flexible enough, and we should be flexible enough in our schools to know what our students need, to know what our students have achieved and what they haven't achieved. And if we believe that we can move along more quickly because they have they've already gotten to a point where it is not as useful to have this assignment versus this assignment, we'll change the assignment.
Yeah,
In my
yeah,
way,
yeah.
know the students, to
Simple.
your point, know your
Yeah.
students that way as well. Be flexible enough to change up an assignment so that you can perhaps take away the opportunity for them to use that AI. So again, know the students. We're dipping our toes into the,
Yep.
oh, what we can do to stay away from. But the last one I have for you is very simple. But again, especially in a Christian school, we should be asking, do you have a policy across your high school courses? Have you suggested to your faculty and staff, if there's more suggestions you want them to think of it, not you? When you have your faculty and staff to come together and say, what do you think are some good AI detection tools? Maybe you can prompt your small group to think about this in a larger way. Have you asked the students? How many bleeding hearts do you know you have in your classroom? I'm sure there's the little rebels. I'm sure there's the ones that are young in their walk with Christ, but you do have bleeding hearts in there. So if you can take away half of the possible AI detection concerns by simply asking them, did you use AI in any way to create this paper? Assuming that you've done a very good job in communicating your expectations, that there is
Mhm.
no AI usage outside of what like a grammar check might be on a Google Doc or something. Assuming that you're using those obvious tools to you. And again, this is where I go back to know your enemy, know the enemy, because maybe not all of your teachers do know the enemy well enough. But have you asked the students to sign off and say, I did not use AI? Or when it comes across the desk, and plagiarism of yesteryear, same thing. There are students who just will out and out tell you I did.
Mhm.
Don't rob yourself of the opportunity to just ask.
Yeah. Make it a part of the process. And that's the thing. To finish that off, there has to be a process. And I believe asking the students, if you made it clear they're not supposed to use it, you still ask because you've made it a point. It's an expectation and you
Uh-huh.
follow through with it. If you just say, hey guys, don't use AI, and then that's it, they're going to use AI because you never check on it. So follow through, come up with, ways of giving them opportunity to demonstrate, where they are in the process, talk through
Uh-huh.
the process. Like that's another thing I think, how did you find that answer? Even that without a point blank, did you use AI? Just how did you
Yes.
walk me through the process?
Yes.
And they will tell you, I typed in
Hmm.
Google and that's what the first thing that came up said. So,
Yeah.
that's
I,
going to be helpful as well.
I will say I had absolutely this year a case of a student that I know they went to Canva and they just, what was spit out was far more appropriate than they ever would have written on their own. And I approached them and I went through that. Hey, could you walk me through how this
Mhm.
was created? And we got down to that crux, which was, so you're telling me that everything you put on this board was your gathering, but you used Canva to make the text pretty in a organized fashion. Well, I had not said that they couldn't go to Canva and make the text pretty, so I couldn't fault them for that. And they had answered the crux question, which was, no, I got all of this data and I wrote it out in the paragraphs you see it in, and then I just copied and pasted into Canva so it created this data in a pretty way. I needed to, at that point, allow God to do the work. I really did. Because though it was obvious to me that this was not the general writing style of the student and so on and so forth, there may be a time when you need to let those students just simmer in it
Mhm.
and realize, even if they truly don't think they've done anything wrong in the process, if you can point them out to the process, which shows what you actually did, maybe there will be a coming back to you of, hey, I apologize about this. This was not what I meant. Let's give our students the opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
And I also read a work to start my summer that has challenged me to challenge those around me to allow students to be as responsible as possible for their own growth and development. So in this situation, when we say ask, this also pulling a Matt here, going a little bit further into the what can we do versus the detection. But part of that detection could well be something which the peers do. Have you had the peers, the students, review one another's work? That could absolutely bring up detection. All you got to do is listen. And maybe, having the rough draft before the final draft is due kind of thing, letting the peers talk about it, and you might hear just over, "Hey, this is pretty obviously not you, idiot. Why'd you do it this way?" Well, anyway, have you
Yeah.
asked? Is asking a part of your general process? Because it may well cut out a large or a significant number anyway. Anything, it may cut out one at the very least that you can say, "Oh, I don't have to worry about it because they admitted it or they signed off here no, and I'm going to let their no stand for their honor. I'm going to let their no stand for what it is." And that's something that may be valuable for you as well, to be able to consistently return back to. You said you did not. So how valuable is your word? You've signed this. To sign on all the documents.
Yep.
AI detection in high school humanities, but throughout the school. Don't rely on AI checkers 100%. Either way, know the enemy. Get familiar with what's available to you. Pick a couple and have your faculty and staff run through it. Know the students, which is probably the primary way of detecting AI is knowing the students intimately and their writing styles and their work styles and what they can offer. And then ask. Make sure you have an opportunity, assignment by assignment, that you're asking students about this. We've gone long, but we've
Yeah.
answered questions brought to us. We've tried to bring together some thoughts concerning a very specific ask from a friend. So when we do that, we want to make sure we give you the time we give you. Now, we already told you who we're talking about. Well, we're going to talk our Christian administrators. Our Christian administrator spotlight tonight is going out to Jeremy, I'm going to say Luchain,
Mm-hmm.
from Bible Baptist School in Highland, Indiana. Jeremy, again, thanks to Mr. Suter, you're going to be getting yourself a gift card. Matt, could you pray for Jeremy tonight, please?
Let's pray. Father, thank you so much for Jeremy and the work that he is doing there in the great state of Indiana. And I pray, Lord, that you would guide him in his preparations for the next school year. I don't know where they stand on AI, but I pray that it would be a tool that would be useful, a resource, but also that he would be able to navigate this territory in a way that draws both he, his faculty, his staff, and his students closer to you. I pray that you would just bless, bring whatever solutions are needed in the prayers that they have, whatever requests may be on their heart, that you would just bring prompt answers that would allow them to move forward in a way that brings you honor and glory. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. All right, folks, we've gone long. So at this point, I'm just going to say thanks for growing with us today.
We want to thank you for listening. We're honored that you spend this time with us each week. Our heart is to bring you practical conversations and resources that really serve you as a Christian school leader. One of the best ways you can help us spread the word is by leaving us a review and sharing the podcast with other Christian school principals you're connected with. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Join the conversation and share any posts that resonate with you. Every share makes a difference in helping more leaders find encouragement and practical tools. And remember, the podcast is just one way we help. We also love serving schools through speaking and workshops. Our keynotes and sessions are designed to give you actionable strategies you can take back to your team and implement right away. If you'd like more details, just send us an email at info@christianprinciplespodcast.com. We'd love to connect. Until next time, thanks for joining us on the Christian Principles Podcast.